Okay. You can use that QR code and take a picture of it or whatever, and it will take you to our phone number, our website, our Facebook, our YouTube, and wherever you can find more information. So this afternoon, I was asked to speak on two subjects. One is on the immune system, and the other is stress. So we'll first start on the immune system. There we go. All right. Optimal immunity, how to achieve it. I worked in regular health care for 20 years, and we addressed things kind of backwards. We looked at treating signs and symptoms instead of getting to root cause many times. An example, if I take sandpaper and I'm rubbing my arm, what's going to happen? It's going to take the hide off of it. And you come up to me and say, honey, you need to put some medicine on there. And you put medicine on there. And then you leave and I start rubbing it again. And then you come up as the nurse the next day and you put more medicine on there. And, oh, yeah, it needs it. And I go to rubbing it. Is it going to heal? No, it's not going to heal. Because I've got to get rid of root cause. Excuse me. And that's what we have to do, is look at what can cause it and remove that cause. And many times the body then will heal itself or take care of itself. And so let's take a look at immune system and what could be some of the issues. Our clicker's not working. While they're doing that, I'm going to grab a lozenge, a slippery elm lozenge. Has anyone ever used slippery elm? Yeah, slippery elm. It's amazing how good it is for anywhere from the esophagus down. It's very healing. The Cherokees, when they would go from village to village many years ago, and if they didn't have food, they would bark an elm tree and they would scrape the inner bark and they would eat that as food. And that reminded me of when I was in elementary school in American history. We learned about George Washington when they're fighting the Redcoats. For one time, for 2 weeks, they got socked in on a snowstorm. And all his guys ate was the bark of an elm tree, the inner bark. So you don't have to worry about overdose on it. Let's try it and see if it works. It still buzzes. It vibrates. Over here? It's working. Excellent. We'll try coming back over here. Optimal immunity and how to achieve it. What is the immune system? Number one. Number two, things not to do, things to do, and things to take. There's things that we can use that can help us. So the first question is, what is the immune system? The immune system distinguishes self from non-self and eliminates potentially harmful non-self molecules and cells from the body. The immune system also has the capacity to recognize and destroy abnormal cells that derive from host tissues. Any molecule capable of being recognized by the immune system is considered an antigen. Skin, cornea, mucosa of the respiratory and gastrointestinal tract form a physical barrier that is the body's first line of defense. Some of these barriers also have active immune functions. So the key is we've got to protect our body. Things not to do. How do we weaken our immune system? I call them the 3 S's: sugar, stress, and sleep deprivation. Those 3 guys are top 3 immune killers. Sugar. Besides being a driver behind other chronic health conditions like diabetes and heart disease, sugar consumption affects one's body's ability to fight off viruses or other infections in the body. Now, y'all are getting ready to do a Nedley class, right? You're doing it now. Is it the brain one? You finished that one, so now you're doing the depression? Okay. From depression on the way out. So Nedley in his book, Proof Positive, which is an excellent book, Nedley says that just a 12-ounce soft drink will wipe out your immune system 50%, or approximately 50%, for 4 hours. One 12-ounce soft drink will wipe out your immune system 50% for up to 4 hours. Now, he says, if you add a Snickers bar to that, now, we're not talking the ones like they have today. We're talking the ones when we were kids, those little ones. A little Snickers bar, along with one soft drink, only one white cell out of 14 white cells is going to work for the next 4 hours. Nedley says those other 13 white cells, you just put them to sleep or anesthetize them for 4 hours. Now, if you went and played a basketball game, and we know that basketball doesn't have 14 players, but you have 14 players on one side and you had one on the other side, we know who's going to win. God made our immune system to fight, and if we take out 13 14ths and put them to sleep, is it going to do a good job? Not at all. Before I changed lifestyle, I worked in regular health care. I was in North Carolina, and when I was in Bakersville area, when I was in Asheboro area, I would drive around the state of North Carolina teaching. Well, what would I do? To get energy, I'd stop into a gas station, and I'd get me a Dr. Pepper and a Snickers bar. And that then provided me energy to wherever I was going. Then once we got to wherever those meetings were, what do you think they had at the meetings? Donuts and danishes. Well, you don't want to offend them, and so you got to try them, you know. And so I get me a danish or a donut or maybe one of each, and you start eating on it. Well, Billy Bob over there, he's sick, and he comes up and he just wiped his nose and, "Hey, Walt, how you doing?" He shakes my hand. Well, I go back to eating my Danish or whatever, and I'd already wiped it out 13 14ths from stopping and getting the Dr. Pepper and the Snickers bar. Now I'm even worse because I'm getting the Danish, the donut, whatever. Is there a probability I'll get what he has? There's a probability, absolutely. And so sugar can be huge, like a milkshake or one slice of a cheesecake. Nedley says will take out your immune system 92 to 93%. For up to 4 hours. That's significant. White blood cells, also known as killer cells, are highly affected by sugar consumption. Sugar hinders the immune system by not allowing the white blood cells to do their job and destroy bad bacteria or viruses, as well as when we do not eat sugar. So not only does it viruses, but also bacteria. The average American eats approximately 22 teaspoons of sugar each day, 150 pounds of sugar per year. And what's HFSC? Yes. It's in everything. I mean, it's in bread. It's in sweet pickles. It's in soft drinks. It's in so much ketchup. 79 pounds of high fructose corn syrup per year. And I believe this number is elevated since I got these numbers. The next one is sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation. We talked about sleep earlier and those three functions that we want to look at. We want to look at the total hours of sleep. The goal is 8 to 9 hours. Also being asleep by 9 o'clock, we talked about that. And then also having that contiguous sleep through the night where we're not waking up multiple times and we're getting REM sleep. Sleep provides essential support to the immune system. Getting sufficient hours of high-quality sleep enables a well-balanced immune defense that features strong innate and adaptive immunity and less severe allergenic reactions. Lack of sleep can affect your immune system. This is Mayo Clinic. Studies show that people who do not get quality sleep or enough sleep are more likely to get sick after being exposed to a virus such as the common cold. Lack of sleep can also affect how fast you recover if you do get sick. How expensive is sleep? It's pretty cheap. Stress. Stress is the number one diagnosis in America. It was supposed to be, according to WHO, World Health Organization, it was supposed to be overtaken by this time by depression. In March of 2020, WHO said that shortly, depression would be the number one diagnosis in America. Well, what happened around 2020, around March? COVID. Yes. Stress went crazy, and it just gave it a big old kick increase. So the depression has not caught up. But stress is huge. Many of today's illnesses and diseases are triggered by chronic stress, which depresses the immune system and wreaks havoc on every organ system in the body. Now, we're going to talk about stress after this one here. So I'm not going to go big into stress because we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. Exactly how stress causes and contributes to disease is a question of particular interest to researchers. There are two likely pathways. One is behavioral. People under stress sleep poorly and are less likely to exercise. They adopt poor eating habits, smoke more, don't comply with medical treatment. Stress also triggers a response by the body's endocrine system, which releases hormones that influence multiple other biological systems, including the immune system. We'll learn, let's see here. Yes, 1 minute of anger can suppress your immune system for 6 hours. We talked about Dr. Arvo Khanna in our last meeting, where Arvo's he's a neurologist. And Arvo and I were teaching together one time, and I asked Arvo, he and Neil used to work together, and Neil Nedley's the one that published this right here. And I said, Arvo, let's look physiologically in the brain. Is there a big difference in what happens with 1 minute of anger and 1 minute of stress to the immune system from what happens in the brain? He says, no, it's very similar. I said, so can I then substitute the word anger that Neil puts in here and put in stress? He said, absolutely. 1 minute of significant stress can wipe out your immune system for up to how long? Amazing, huh? How many times at work do we get that phone call from a customer that's just, this lady called me one day, and she's screaming the phone, why are you trying to kill me and my husband? I said, pardon? She says, why are you trying to kill me and my husband? I mean, she is upset. I said, ma'am, what are you talking about? She says, you told us to go home and juice, and we are peeing and pooping blood. I said, did you use any beets? Yeah. How many beets did you use? She says, well, I put 2 of them in each juice. I said, ma'am, you're peeing and pooping beet juice. But you get those phone calls sometimes that people are just yelling and screaming at you or whatever's out there. Someone to cut you off in traffic or who knows what the stressful event is. It can wipe out your immune system for up to 6 hours. Other things, poor diet, vitamin D deficiency, alcohol, obesity, smoking, dehydration, and something called internet addiction. That's interesting. Poor diet. Diets that are limited in variety and low in nutrients, such as consisting primarily of ultra-processed foods, can negatively affect a healthy immune system. It is also believed that a Western diet high in refined sugar and red meat and low in fruits and vegetables can promote disturbances in the healthy intestinal microorganisms, resulting in chronic inflammation of the gut and associated with suppressed immunity. And I just read earlier that Harvard, or I mentioned earlier today, that Harvard published November 1st of this year a study that said hypertension can be caused by where we have that inflammation, that gut biome is not working well. Can be another cause. And what can cause that to happen? A poor diet can cause that. Vitamin D deficiency. We talked about this earlier. Deficiency of vitamin D is associated with increased autoimmunity and an increased susceptibility to infection. We saw during COVID them wanting to push our vitamin D up to improve our immune system. Research shows that vitamin D plays an important role in immune function, and a deficiency in it is shown to increase one's susceptibility to infection. Vitamin D deficiencies can mean your immune system is more vulnerable. We now have found out that if you have a vitamin D deficiency, it can cause inflammation in the cells, and it can affect diabetes or insulin resistance. And what happens is we have trillions of cells, and each cell has multiple insulin receptors. And what can make those 3 things I found can cause that insulin receptor not work properly. One, if the cell is too large. It's kind of like in the wintertime, and it's moisture and the door just don't open right, or the window don't open right. Well, if you're outside ideal body weight, it can cause that insulin receptor not to open right. The other is Duke University found, Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke University found that there's a fat in 3 foods that causes this receptor not to open right. That fat in the 3 foods are oil, even vegetable oil, it can be even olive oil, dairy, and meat. So Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke said if we stop that fat, which is in oil, dairy, and meat, the body will go in and clean that receptor totally clean, sparkling clean. The third item is inflammation. And now Harvard says the number 1 cause of inflammation is processed foods. But we're now learning that vitamin D deficiency also can cause inflammation, causing the insulin receptor not to work well. And there's other things from stress to toxins that cause that receptor not to work. Also, vitamin D is affecting, we're now learning, the pancreas, the islet cells, to where we don't produce as much insulin. Also, vitamin D deficiency, there seems to be a correlation between HDL and vitamin D deficiency. So if you have a low HDL, bringing your vitamin D up can bring that HDL back up also. Low levels of vitamin D have also been associated with frequent infections. In 2009, the National Institute of Health warned that low vitamin D levels are associated with frequent colds and influenza. Pharmacy Times. Alcohol. Now, why do you think alcohol can address the immune system negatively? Just sugar? Yes, that's a big one. When I go and teach in the school system, how many of y'all remember Art Linkletter? I experience Art Linkletter all the time. I go in the school system and I teach. It's amazing what those kids will tell you. And I'll teach about alcohol. I teach about drugs and smoking and laws of health. And I'll ask the kids, what's wrong with alcohol, beer, or wine, or liquor, or whatever, moonshine, where I am. And the kids will say, it makes mommy and daddy do stupid things. Is that true? It is. And when mom and dad, or when we do stupid things, well, when they, shall I say, we don't, but when they use alcohol and you do stupid things, can you do things that are not too smart that can affect your immune system? Absolutely. Alcohol compromises the body's immune system and increases risk of adverse health outcomes. Alcohol can trigger inflammation in the gut. We already talked about what inflammation in the gut can do. What percentage of your immune system is dependent on gut health? 75%. 75% of your immune system is dependent on gut health. So destroy the microorganisms that live in the intestines and maintain immune system health. This is PubMed. Obesity. Obesity, like other states of malnutrition, how is obesity malnourished? Aren't they getting enough calories? Empty calories, yeah. The biggest patient I ever had was 572 pounds. He was a big man. When I do a diet history on a person, and they're 400, definitely 450 and up, their diet is usually pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers, chips, soft drinks, and Little Debbie's or whatever. Twinkies, as we talked about earlier. And so they're eating empty calories, but it's not calorie dense is the problem. Like obesity, like other states of malnutrition, is known to impair the immune function, altering leukocyte counts as well as mediated immune responses. Smoking. We don't see smoking like we used to. I believe our battle today, in the 70s, our battle was with tobacco companies lying about what was going on. Today, it is with our food companies lying about what they're doing. Smoking harms the immune system and can make the body less successful at fighting disease. So smoking harms the immune system. Dehydration. Dehydration can weaken the immune system, making the body more susceptible to infections. When dehydrated, the body struggles to eliminate toxins, which can lead to a decline in overall health and immune function. The University of California at Davis said it takes a half a gallon of water, 2 quarts, 4 water bottles to run a 5-year-old, up to 128 pounds. So if you're 5 years old, up to 128 pounds, a half a gallon of water is enough water to sit on the couch. But if you're going to exercise, play ball, whatever, you need even more water. Over 128 pounds, it's body weight divided by 2 is the standard that we're using today. Body weight divided by 2. Now, if they're like that fellow that was 572 pounds, there's a special number for them. But most folks don't fall in that. But body weight divided by 2. So let's say a guy weighs 200 pounds. How many ounces of water does he need? 100 to sit on the couch. But if he works in the yard, if he does things, any expenditure of energy, he needs more than the 100 ounces. The state of Tennessee tells me I'm to drink a gallon of water a day. Why? That's the Tennessee Fire Academy, because I'm a firefighter. And if you go in a house fire, or as right now Sevier County's fighting a wildfire. We were fighting a wildfire just a few nights ago. If you're fighting fire, it's hot, and you need even more water. Also, so we know that if you're 5 years old to 128 pounds, you need how much? To sit on the couch. If you're over 128 pounds, you need how much? Body weight divided by 2 to sit on the couch. And we were talking earlier about a fellow that was friends with Einstein. And he was another physicist. And he found that if you drink more than 2 to 3 ounces at a given time, it goes into what's called free flow. And you just urinate it off. So if you take 8 ounces of water and drink 8 ounces of water, you're only going to absorb or can count for this number 2 to 3 ounces. Because 5 to 6 of those ounces are just going to go out and just urinate off. So he said you want to take a mouthful of water about 4 different times every half hour. He says, except 15 minutes before you eat, while you eat, and or after you eat. Now, where did we hear that? Ellen White. Yeah, exactly. But the rest of the day, he said, just take a mouthful about 4 times every half hour, and you have better saturation. And I come off a farm, and this makes sense to me. It's like pouring a 5-gallon bucket of water on a tomato plant. It's going to run off. Versus a drip line, it's going to soak in. And that's what we're wanting to do. Dehydration can weaken the immune system, making the body more susceptible to infections. When dehydrated, the body struggles to eliminate toxins, which can lead to a decline in overall health and immune function. Internet addiction. Anybody ever heard of internet addiction? There's another one. Let's see here. Y'all got a cell phone? Can I borrow that cell phone? This is an interesting one. Have you ever seen people do this? What's that called? Do you know what? There's actually a diagnosis that was actually an official, I guess, a ICD-10 code now, by psychologists of people who take pictures of themselves more than 3 times a day. You know what it's called? Selfitis. Selfitis. That is a medical term in the field of psychology for people who think too much of themselves. It's inflammation of self. Internet addiction. Let's look at internet addiction. Can people be addicted to internet? I shared with y'all just a few weeks ago down in Rogersville where a guy comes in several months ago and his eyes are red, but they are the red. Who's ever seen welding burns in the eye? Okay? I said, have you been welding? Because that's what it looks like. He said, no. I said, well, it doesn't look like an infection. It looks like welding burns. He goes, no, I haven't been welding. And he wouldn't tell me nothing else. I said, okay, let's address it like it's infection, but I don't think it's infection. Now, what are some things we can do naturally for infection of the eye? Okay? Potato water. What else? Breast milk. Raw cow's milk. Raw goat's milk. My favorite is, well, you could use colloidal silver. That works very well. But my favorite is golden seal tea. It only takes a 1/16 of a teaspoon. A 1/16 of a teaspoon of golden seal to 1 ounce of water. Make a tea in it. Let it sit for 30 minutes. Strain it through a coffee strainer. And I say coffee strainer. It's the only thing coffee strainer is good for. But what it does is a regular paper towel or other things, it wicks up too much. And so you lose too much of your material. And so then you take that and put that in the eye about, a drop or two every little bit, and it will kill an eye infection very quickly. Pardon? Same thing. Same thing for conjunctivitis. Now, do you know what we used to do for cows for that? Catch that old bossy cow not looking and you throw salt in her eyes. And you don't do that to people, though. And you can use salt water, saline solution, but I like you can still use the milk, the breast milk, fresh breast milk. And who's been to other countries where they use breast milk in babies' eyes? When they breastfeed proactively, every time the lady breastfeeds, she will squeeze breast milk into the baby's eye. And that will keep it from being infected. You see that in Africa, you see it in Honduras, you see it Even in some of the Appalachian ladies will still do it. So this guy's coming in. I'm trying to think, what is wrong with this guy's eyes? And he says, I have to be honest with you. He says, I am going for $1 million. And he said, I've been on the internet for 4 days straight, no sleep. And I'm trying to think the game he was playing. I don't know. I don't like internet games, but anyway. He said, I have made it up to there's one final game to go, and if I win that one, I go to Las Vegas and I go for $1 million. And his eyes look terrible, terrible, awful. Internet addiction. Internet addiction can damage immune function. People with excessive internet use have 30% more cold and flu symptoms than those with less problematic internet usage. Why? Those who spend excessive time on the internet tend to have greater sleep deprivation, worse eating habits, a less healthy diet, engage in less exercise, tend to smoke, and drink alcohol more. Does that make sense? Yeah, you can see why it is. So those are some things not to do. So what can you do? Prayer, WHO, what they recommend, healthy diet, hydrotherapy, prayer. And this is homework, Psalms 91, Psalms 103. Take it home, read those, and that can help with stress, with the immune system. Stress, we'll talk a little more in depth on this, but it will help the immune system. WHO, this is what WHO was saying in the spring of 20, except one item is changed, but I'll tell you what change that was. Wash your hands regularly, soap and water. Alcohol rub, if not visible or dirty. Can we wash our hands too much? Yes, you can. You sure can. Practice respiratory hygiene. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing. Throw the tissue into a clothesbin. Wash your hands. Is it good to use a handkerchief? Remember those days? No. Not good. Use something you can throw away, and a handkerchief is only for women crying, for guys to hand to them. Maintain social distancing, especially if coughing and a fever. Now, this is what's changed. In the fall of 20, this was only 1 meter. With COVID, it went to 2 meters. Prior to COVID, it was only 1 meter. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Why is that? There's holes in you. Right? Eyes, mouth, nose, there's holes there. And infection can get in. So don't put it at the door of the holes. Mask and personal protective equipment if you're sick when caring for someone who is sick in a healthcare setting. This is what WHO recommended. If you're unwell, stay home. If you have a fever, cough, or difficulty breathing, seek early medical care. That's just how, I call it horse sense. If you're sick, don't get everybody else sick. A healthy diet. Now, this is Harvard. And again, I was mentioning just yesterday, day before yesterday, the study Harvard published, what came out November 1st. And again, that balanced diet, fruits and vegetables. Harvard is huge on teaching this. Also, Cornell University is huge on teaching it. A balanced diet consisting of a range of vitamins and minerals most effectively primes the body to fight infections and disease. And people will come into me and they'll ask me, what is the best multivitamin I can get? What is it? It's what you can get out of your backyard, your garden. You know what the soil is. You know what seeds you use. University of North Carolina found that hybrid seeds only uptake approximately 40% of the nutrients that an heirloom seed will. That's huge, isn't it? That's huge. Based on which seed you stick in the ground. Hybrid versus heirloom. So I tell folks, what you grow in your backyard, you know the soil, you've had it tested, you know what seeds you stuck in it, you know what you sprayed on it. Is it okay to spray stuff on your garden? Absolutely. Do you know what green manures are? You can take kudzu. Who knew Bob Jorgensen? Bob was real big into green manures. And you can take a 55-gallon drum, put kudzu cuttings in it, put water in it, make a kudzu tea, like sun tea. Let it sit at least 15 days to 30 days. Strain that off and then spray your vegetables with that kudzu tea, that green tea. And it will transdermally absorb into those leaves and into the plant. And he proved where the nutrition of that plant, of that vegetable that it produced, is higher. And also, if you grow your own food, you know when you picked it. Whoever's grown hay? Anybody ever put up hay? Okay, so the nutritional value goes like a bell curve. Can you cut hay when it's raining? No, it's going to mold. So either you're going to have to cut it earlier to allow it to dry and put it up before the rain comes in, or you're going to have to wait until it dries out. Well, if it's not at top, you lose nutrition. And Dad would always pray that when the hay was at most nutrition, because I grew up on a dairy farm, and we needed hay that was, you get the most milk production out of good food. And so you pray that it's highest nutrition. Have you ever seen them pick tomatoes that are green with a little stripe on it? Why don't they pick that mater that's just perfect, ready to put on that sandwich? Because it's not picked to just put on the sandwich. They're going to mail it from California, from Chile, to whatever. It's got to sit in the grocery store, and it'll start rotting or rotting. And depends on where you're from, how you say that word. And so when you buy it in the grocery store, in the produce section, many times it was not harvested by vine ripe. Frozen food usually is, but not what you pick. But what you pick in your backyard, you can pick that mater and put it on that mater sandwich, and it's perfect. There's a huge dip. That is your best multivitamin. Eating enough nutrients as part of a varied diet is required for the health and function of all cells, including immune cells. Hydrotherapy. Has anybody never done hydrotherapy? Anybody never done hydrotherapy? That means you've never taken a bath before. Or a shower. Hydrotherapy is using water for therapy. A cold shower. Let me see if I can get up here and read these benefits of a cold shower. Strengthens the immune system. Increases hormone production. Improves circulation. Increases metabolism. Alleviates depression. Detox. Improves male fertility. Speeds up healing. Prevents post-workout injuries. Decreases chronic pain. Reduces body aches. Improve your hair health, improve kidney function, reduces swelling and edema, heal and tone skin, regulate the autonomic nervous system, regulates uric acid levels in the body, and improves sleep. Hydrotherapy is amazing. Anybody ever done a sauna? Saunas are tremendous. And you can interact a shower with a sauna. So I'll do a hot shower, then a sauna for about 18 minutes. Come back to a hot shower, end with cold. Come back into sauna for about 12 minutes. Come back into the hot shower for about 2 minutes. Go cold. Go back into a sauna for about 8 minutes. And then come back into a shower for about 2 minutes and finish cold. Lay down for 2 hours. It's amazing what it will do to your immune system. Huge. Yes, ma'am. 30 to 60 seconds. Now, if the person has angina, do not go plumb cold. You can put them into angina if they have heart conditions. So just go, cool. I was in Honduras now it's been a month ago, and guess how many hot showers I took? 0. If you took a shower, it was plumb cold, and it came right out of the creek. When we went to Venezuela, all we had was plumb cold in the mountains of Venezuela. Yeah. Saunas are very good. fever treatments. Here the military uses fever treatments. Again, military using fever treatments. Anybody ever heard of a fever treatment? Doc? No, it's where you put them in a bathtub or in a sauna, or as they do in Tijuana, give them a drug that will raise which is not the good way to do it. But what you want is you take the oral temperature up to 102 to 104. If it goes over 102, if it's in water, you put a little cooler water there. If you're in the sauna, just open it up and let some cool in. Or if you're in Tijuana, they have you in ICU, and they'll give you a drug to lower it again. And then if it goes too low, they'll give you a drug to make it go up again. And I asked this physician who owned the hospital there in Tijuana, and it was this big cancer treatment he did. And I said, why don't you just use hydrotherapy and a fever treatment? And he looked at me and he says, you're a Seventh-day Adventist, aren't you? I said, yes, sir. He said, because it's too labor intensive. No, because he could charge ICU prices. But you can either do it in water or you can do it in a sauna. And Dr. Charles Thomas, remember Charles Thomas at Loma Linda? He used to be on 3ABN a lot. Charles Thomas said it would raise the white count 7-fold. I didn't believe it. So I had our nurses draw a mess of fever treatment patients that we were doing, checked it, and he was exactly right. At 5 hours after the treatment, it peaked at 7-fold. And it doesn't come back to normal till 3 days. Now, I don't know the exact bell curve, but it peaks at 5 hours and stays there. Pardon? The white count. So whatever you start at, measure the white count, and now you times that by 7, that's where it's going to be within 5 hours. It's impressive. It really works well. Now, what are they doing here? This is still part of fever treatments, but Thomas says that you need to put them in bed for 2 hours after the treatment, and that's pre-Thomas here. This is back like Battle Creek days. Notice how neat they have them tucked in. Nurses used to do. When you took nursing, were they very particular on how you made a bed? This is usually to treat people who are sick. Yes. It would not hurt to do it to a person proactively. If someone's sick in the house, it would be perfectly fine. So they leave them that way for 2 hours. Now, why are those nurses standing there? In case they have to go to the bathroom. But also, how many of y'all sleep like that? No. So when that person wakes up and they start to get up and they roll off and break their hip or break their shoulder or whatever, so that nurse is there to grab them. It's okay, honey, stay right there. Let me help you here. And so they're there to protect them. Notice the caps. Don't see those today either, do you? Pardon? Yeah, exactly. So fomentations. When I just graduated from high school, and this old fellow, my dad knew. It was the summer going into my freshman year at SMC. I was at my dad's. He was a friend of his, and he was 97. And he says, Walt, you're going into healthcare, aren't you? I said, yes, sir. He says, I need to tell you something you might need to know someday. I said, yes, sir. So he tells me about during the World War I, men started just dying. And just dying like flies. And they couldn't keep them leaving. And they found a treatment that would stop the effects of the Spanish flu. And it was hot and cold fomentations. And so he taught me about it, taught me how to do it, and how good it was for pneumonia. And he says, someday you'll probably need to know this. Did we use it during COVID? Yeah, we did. We sure did. The fomentations are amazing. You can just take a hot towel, apply it for 3 minutes, take it off. Either do a cold mitten friction for 30 seconds or put an iced up hand towel or another towel on the chest, and for 1 minute, take it off, put the hot back on. So 3 minutes hot, 1 minute cold. 3 minutes hot, 1 minute cold. If you want to really get textbook, after the cold, wipe it off, put the hot back on. And you do it, I like doing it for 7 times. You can do it twice a day. It works, or 3 times a day. But you got vasodilation, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, vasoconstriction. You're increasing blood flow. So it's like an inline pump, pumping blood to that area. We quit doing hydrotherapy for the most part in 1992 when the intermediaries quit, the insurance companies quit paying us. But if you're in sports medicine, if you're in veterinarian, they still do hydrotherapy. Yes. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Mary Lou and I visited a good friend of ours, classmate of ours, just recently. And he has this really highfalutin. It reminds me of the old physical therapy tubs. But he had a hot tub, was like the old hydrotherapy tubs. And then he had a refrigerated tub, or almost like a freezer tub at a certain temperature. And he would get in the hot water and then go over to the cold water. Get over to the hot water, go over to the cold water. And I said, were you one of them crazy guys at school, at SMC, that would take a sauna and then go jump into the bathtub with ice water in it? He goes, yep, I started it. And it does. When Mary Lou and I went to Alaska, they will go inside this, what do they call it? Yeah, it's a hot house kind of thing. They got a special word for it. So they go in there and they sweat real good, but they tried to convince us that we need to do it without clothes on, and I convinced them that I was not going to do that. But they just go in there naked, and then they go out and they roll around in the snow, and then they go back in it, and then go roll in the snow, and then in the Ukrainians and the Russians, they'll whoop themselves with a branch. What? Yes, a birch branch while they're in there. And pardon? Say it stimulates circulation. Now in the summertime in Alaska, they will go in there and again stitch clothes on them, and then they go back out, and then they have really cold water there, and they pour, put that cold water on them, and then they go back in. So yes, it's very beneficial. Really, that's interesting. Keeps bugs off of it. I've never heard that. Thank you. Yes, that'll work. Absolutely. It sure will. Using hot-cold contrast showers, bathing, or fomentations can powerfully optimize immune function and greatly stimulate antibody production against viral and other forms of infection. Things to take. There's some things that you can do. Vitamin D. Garlic is phenomenal. Garlic is one of my favorites. My favorite one, literally last night, I was concerned I was going to get sick. My nose was running. But again, remember, I worked a fire the other night, and I only got 2 hours sleep. That'll plumb wipe out my immune system. But I did fine until last night, probably around 4 o'clock. My nose just started running, and then it clogged up. And as soon as it started running, I started taking oil of oregano. That's my 357 Magnum. And I was doing 10 drops under my tongue. And then there's a difference in oregano oil and oil of oregano. Do not do oregano oil. It will burn your tongue, your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach. That's plum oregano, 100%. You want oil of oregano, which is 75% olive oil and 25% oregano oil. And that's okay to put in your mouth. So I was doing that. And then I put garlic. I put allicin, which takes 24 cloves of garlic to make 1 drop of allicin. And so I took allicin. Then I did more oregano and went to bed early and I did fine. It plumb killed it. Onions, oil of oregano, zinc. The problem with zinc, during COVID, doctors were giving more than 200 milligrams of zinc. That's okay as long as you give copper along with that. Because if you're taking more than 35 milligrams of zinc, you're going to start depleting copper, and you don't want to deplete your copper. Men are more prone to lose zinc than women. Zinc is very important for our immune system and also cognitive function. Also very important for the thyroid. Vitamin C, B6, vitamin E, elderberry. Who's ever used elderberry? The neat thing about elderberry is University of Sydney, Australia, the scientists there found that when you take elderberry, a virus will not stick to the walls of the lung. That's pretty impressive. Iodine, you can use. That's also good for the immune system. We saw that used during COVID. Iodine's good. It's extremely good to prevent breast cancer. The average American female consumes 0.125 milligrams of iodine a day, 0.125. The average Japanese woman consumes 13.7. She's much less prone to breast cancer. And so taking 12.5 milligrams of iodine a day significantly reduces a female's risk for breast cancer.
How are they getting the iodine?
In Japan is the sea vegetables. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's the best way to get it here?
It's called Lugol solution, potassium iodide, potassium iodine. You can do it liquid. You can put transdermal, PO, by mouth. But the liquid only lasts for about an hour and a half in the system. If you do the capsule, it's time release, it's 12 and a half hours. So we find a little bit better benefit by using something like Lugotab, iodoral. There's another one, Mary Lou. Iodoral, Lugotab. Iodoral. Yeah, iodoral, and anyway, there's another one maybe. So that's really good. But here's the cool thing. You know what the cool thing about it is, though? So they do this study in North Carolina about where it significantly stops breast cancer. So how old is a female when she can get breast cancer? Can she be 18? Absolutely she can. So they were giving it to young girls up to, as long as the lady lived. Well, the school system started noticing where this study was being done, there was quite a few of the kids started becoming really smart, even Mensa's geniuses. So the school system, the only correlation, just the girls. Oh, wait a minute. Let me come back. No, boys too. They were given. Well, let me come back to that. So they were given it only to the females. So the school system notices these Mensas in all their schools in that area, and they normally have Mensas. This is in the Appalachian Mountains, where this study was being done, and so the only correlation was they all had the same healthcare provider. So they went to the healthcare provider and asked, what's going on? And the healthcare provider goes, yes, they're all my patients. And found out that it was the children of the women that they were giving the iodine to. Well, the kid's IQ was 10 to 15 points above the mother's IQ. Now they do 12.5 milligrams during pregnancy, especially during the first and second trimester. but just like you would folic acid. But then when the baby started nursing, they went to 25 milligrams to 2 years of age. Well, Germany gets interested in this. And Germany is now doing a study with 25 milligrams during pregnancy, 50 milligrams during nursing, and it looks like their numbers are even higher than ours. So it's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. No, for the, yeah, okay, so for the child, when the child can start chewing, the infant, when it can start chewing, the child does just over 3 milligrams, and they chew that up. The mother's doing the iodine while she's nursing for 2 years. It was originally for breast prevention, and then they found out it was now for IQ for the children. It's a very good question. I tell as many people as I can tell. And the study started in Fletcher, in Hendersonville area. Yep. Yep. Was there? Well, they went back and they said, is this crazy giving 25 milligrams of iodine? Well, they go back and look. They were giving 800 milligrams of iodine back in the late 60s with no problems. And so they have no negative side effects. Well, and they're still below what the Japanese women are consuming. That's correct, because we have the deficiency in America. Because we quit doing iodized salt, and we're just not getting adequate iodine. Yeah. And then NAC. I think let's go ahead to the next one, because we covered that already. So let's go to the next presentation. I tell you what, you want to sing a song? Let's all stand up. Who knows the song, "A Merry Heart Doeth Good Like a Medicine"? Okay, we'll see if my throat can do it. I don't know if I can. All right. I won't march. Normally I march, but I'm not going to march in church. So. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Like a medicine is a merry heart. But a broken spirit dry up the bones. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Okay, y'all know it now. Okay, let's all sing it one more time. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Like a medicine is a merry heart. But a broken spirit dry up the bones. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. David and I used to sing together. Have a seat, y'all. We used to sing in Camerata together. Okay, how to treat stress and anxiety naturally. Again, stress is the number one diagnosis in America. Anybody not have stress? Anybody in here not have stress? I had a lady come to me not long ago, and I've known her for 21 years. And she's kind of a person that can get tore up real bad. You know what I mean? You know what it means, tore up real bad? And she comes in, and she has something going on. I said, how's your stress? 0 to 10. This is as of late. And I've noticed a change in her. And I said, 0 to 10. She says, 0. And I said, no, 0 meaning no stress. 10 being major stress. And this lady was like off the chart. She said 0. And I said, how do you have 0 stress? She said, I found Jesus 2 years ago, and I just give everything to him now. Is that not the answer? That is the best answer there is. And that's just country smarts right there, mountain smarts. We're going to look at stress for two issues. The effects of stress and anxiety on the body, natural treatments for stress and anxiety. Effects of stress and anxiety on the body. The relationship which exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health of the physical system. If the mind is free and happy. Now, I'm going to give you prescriptions here today. Are you ready? This is your first one. Now, who's this prescription from? That's right. It's from God. If it's free and happy. I now teach a 9th law of health. You know there's 8 laws of health? Well, I added one because I found it in Proverbs 17:22, and we just sang about it. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. There are people whose minds are just tore up all the time. They're upset all the time. They're always finding fault all the time. Are they healthy? No, they're going to be sick. And so being happy, now I'm not talking Pollyanna happy. I'm talking just a positive person. And that's what it says. Free and happy from a consciousness of right doing and a sense of satisfaction in causing happiness to others. There's another prescription right there. It creates a cheerfulness that will react upon the whole system, causing a freer circulation of the blood and a toning up of the entire body. Now, inspiration, it tells us perfect health, I gave it away. Perfect health is perfect circulation. That's right. Circulation is huge. A great deal of the sickness which affects humanity has its origin in the mind and can only be cured by restoring the mind to health. There are very many more than we imagine that are sick mentally. Heart sickness makes many dyspeptics, that's stomach problems, from a mental trouble that has a paralyzing influence upon the digestive system. Do you find that? If you're plumb stressed out, does your stomach bother you? Many times it does. The mind controls the whole man. All our actions, good or bad, have their sources in the mind. It is the mind that worships God, and that's what we talked about earlier today. That's why the brain is the most important organ in the body, because that's how we worship God, through the brain. And allies us to heavenly beings. Yet many spend all their lives without becoming intelligent in regarding to the jewel casket. Jewel casket that contains this treasure. 9/10 of the diseases which men suffer have their foundation in the mind. Now, is that saying that we're crazy? No. Is stress in the mind? Yes. So, as we look at mental health, we look at cardiac health, we look at digestive health, we look at whatever type of health. Mental health can be good or it can be bad. Mental health, you can have good mental health. But stress causes unhealthy mental health. Anxiety, depression. What is stress? Stress is the body's response to a real or perceived threat or stressor. Have you ever gone down the road and pull out? Or you're driving along with another car and then you pass a policeman and he pulls out behind you and he turns on the blue lights? You ever got stressed? But he passes you up and pulls the guy over that's with you? So you had no reason to be upset because he wasn't pulling you over. Well, you probably did, but he didn't pull you over. And so it was perceived. It wasn't real because you did not get pulled over. Do you ever have things that you perceive? There's all kinds of stories I could share, but you know those kind of stories. You think something's terrible, awful, but you find out, no, it's not. It wasn't that at all. The stress is our body's internal alarm system. Stress prepares the body to take action. That's fight or flight. 3 types of stress: acute, episodic acute, and chronic. Acute stress, immediate onset, which forces the body into an immediate reaction, a minor traffic accident, an argument, impending deadline. That's acute stress. Someone cuts you off when you're driving. Acute, a hospital is an acute care facility. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or now the new word I'm now seeing. They talked about it back 8 years ago as an anesthesiologist that came up with this word. And you know Franklin Cobos? Franklin's an anesthesiologist in Crossville. He says, he knows the guy. He says, I think the guy just came up with the word just to make a name for himself. But the new word is cold, C-O-L-D. Have you heard that one now? I actually saw that on coming from a hospital as a person's diagnosed as COPD, because this pulmonologist and this anesthesiologist said the lay people don't know what pulmonary means. So it's now chronic obstructive lung disease, COLD. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, chronic, the person either has emphysema or they have chronic bronchitis. They pulled asthma out a number of years ago. So you either have emphysema or chronic bronchitis. Did you get that emphysema from smoking after the first cigarette? No. So it's something that takes a while to happen. Chronic takes a while to happen. Where acute is someone hits you you have a car wreck right now, that's acute. Or you fall out of the tree stand, that's acute. Episodic acute. Acute stress which occurs frequently. Escalating demands for personal time and attention. Careless worry and anxiety. Type A behavior characterized by a competitive drive. Aggressiveness, impatience, urgency. Now we're getting a little more into it. That's acute, episodic acute. And then there's chronic stress. This is long-term stress, an unrelenting job. Family pressures, sleep deprivation, long-term sleep deprivation. Strained roles and responsibilities at work or at home. This is something that's every day. It's like someone pinching you, and finally you erupt. It hurts. It has been estimated that 75% to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related problems. Job stress is far and away the leading source of stress for adults, but stress levels have also escalated in children, teenagers, college students, and elderly for other reasons, including increased crime, violence, and other threats to personal safety, pernicious peer pressures that lead to substance abuse and other unhealthy lifestyle habits, social isolation, loneliness, erosion of the family and religious values and ties, the loss of other strong sources of social support that are powerful stress busters. We now see the challenges that the internet is causing with social media. We're all subject to stressors. The amount of stress we experience depends on how we respond to them. My first house fire, Walt. Back when I started firefighting, you could just join the fire department. Floyd Walter House would give you your turnouts. If there was a fire tonight, you jumped on the back of that fire truck, hang on, and you were in the house fire. We do not do that anymore. But my first house fire, it was in Ooltewah. It was a 2-story house, 2 bedrooms upstairs, bathroom in the middle. The floors were up, the 2 bedrooms upstairs were on fire. The captain, the lieutenant, captain's on the nozzle, lieutenant's behind him. They said, come on, let's go. And so we go up the stairs. I had never been in a burning building before. Do you think that was a new experience? That was a new experience. I go in, I'm up at the top of the staircase, freaking out, seeing all this fire. And all of a sudden, there was fire from here to the ceiling, like an inferno. I got so scared. I went running down the staircase. I left them. I'm hyperventilating. I'm trying to pull my air pack off because I can't breathe, but yet it's an air pack. And scared me to death, put me on the front porch, having me breathing a paper bag. Today, I think it's pretty cool looking. You get up there, and now I know what to do not to allow it to happen, to look what to happen. But if it does, you know what to do. You cool it down, boom, it's over. Our first child, Walter. Anything. We were at the doctor's office. Ashley was just about as bad. Carson, oh, he'll be okay. You know what it's like, parents? Your first kid, then your second kid, it's not as much. Your third kid, oh, they'll be fine. Don't worry about it. We are all subject to stressors. The amount of stress we experience depends on how we respond to them. The more experienced we are with it, the difference we can respond to it. You've got a stressor, financial, work, relationship, health, traffic, pollution. Goes through the brain, through the eyes, the ears, whatever our senses are, and then we have a response, verbal, physical, mental, that's dependent on how the brain processes it. So what do? We've got to build that brain up. One of our firefighters' wives had a baby this morning. They transported her last night up to UT because she was having some challenges. She went through something called travail. Ladies, you know what travail is, right? Your first contraction, was it the big contraction that pushed the baby out? Or they start small, and they got bigger, and they got bigger and bigger. And the Bible calls that travail. The more we deal with things, the more God gives us stressors or temptations or whatever, the better we can deal with it. Does that make sense? But that happens in the brain. And so we have these what I call triggers. Then our response determines what our brain does with it. Someone goes and says something. It makes you mad. Is the problem your tongue? No. The problem is your brain, what your brain did with it. Yes, you may have to, until you get your brain figured out, you got to figure out how to close your mouth and put some duct tape on it. But it's the brain is where the problem is. You've got to fix the brain. Dr. Walter Cannon's classic research, Cat Confronted by Dog. He took a dog that hated cats, a cat that hated dogs, took the cat's vitals and let them go. And then he snatched up the cat and read the vitals. And here's what he found. Heart rate went up, respiration went up, blood sugar went up, clotting factor went up, muscle function went up, and what did digestion do? Shut off. Yeah, went down. Because when you're running from the bear, you don't need to worry about digesting food. You need to figure out how to clot up. You need to figure out how to have the body to run in case that bear bites you. What is the human reaction to stress? Increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased respirations, increased hormones and adrenaline, increased sugar in the blood. Why does a person have high blood sugar when they're all stressed out? There it is right there. Stress is causing this to happen. The adrenaline goes up, the cortisol goes up, the blood sugar is going to go up. Increased blood clotting mechanism, increased muscle function. It can cause a queasy stomach, nervous perspiration, headaches, sporadic eating, increased hunger, loss of appetite, change in sleep habits, reduction in digestive process, reduction in the immune system. So actually it can shut down digestion. And, and when that happens, the process of digestion that takes and breaks down macro to micronutrients, so it's small enough to be absorbed into the villi and the duodenum where you got little screens, and it's not, if it doesn't get broke down small enough, it just goes right out the feces and it will not go into the villi for it to go into the blood. Protein definitely is prone to that. If you're let me give you an example. There's a nurse over in West Tennessee. Make extra money, she draws labs for this lab company. Labs come back, and she will go to businesses and organizations and churches and whatever. And then she would tell them, let them know what their labs were, and help read those labs for them so they understand what they need to do, as a good nurse should do. Well, she goes to this one group, and it comes back, the majority of the group, their protein is low. And so she then asks, what do you eat for breakfast? What do you eat for dinner? What do you eat for supper? To every single person, finding out what they eat. Everybody gave record that they ate adequate protein. So she enlists the help of a physician friend of ours, and he goes in and he finds the same thing. They're eating adequate protein based on what they're saying. So he digs in deeper, and guess what he finds? It's a church. Have you ever seen churches where the members they're just worrying about everybody else? Worrying what you're doing and what you're doing, and you ain't doing that right, and you ain't eating that right, and you're going to go to hell for doing this. And you know what I'm talking about. Well, that was one of them churches. And they were just tore up all the time. Well, because they were tore up all the time, when they ate, they did not break the protein down small enough from macro to micro, so when it got in the small intestines, it just kept on going to the colon and on out the feces because it wasn't broke down small enough, because it shut down digestion when they're tore up all the time. So if Mary Lou knows that if I'm stressed, I'm not going to eat usually. Because one, it bothers my stomach. Two, it's not going to do a lick of good. Under stress, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline, which raises the blood pressure and prepares the body to do battle. It also lowers potassium, which also affects blood pressure. When a physical action is taken, the body uses up the stress hormones in the blood, reducing stress and relaxing the body. I worked as an administrator, and you get patients who would be mad. Something happened, one of the doctors, one of the staff, somebody did something to make a family member mad or a patient mad. Well, it always came to my desk because the buck stops there. And they would be angry. So sometimes I'd have to say, listen, go take a walk. And I'll see you in 20 minutes. Sometimes they got me so tore up at first, just all of a sudden, I say, you go walk that way, I'll go walk this way, and we'll meet back here in about 20 minutes. Exercise can lower the adrenaline, lower the cortisol. Excellent to lower cortisol. And also you can mentally just step aside and let their Uzi hit the wall behind you, because they weren't mad at me. They were mad at that staff member. I didn't do nothing wrong. It was just my staff doing it, and I'd have to figure out how to fix it. So when physical action, going and taking that power walk, is a great way to lower cortisol. When physical action is not taken, such as when we're sitting at our desk, stuck in traffic, hurrying to finish up our taxes before midnight, the stress hormones and chemicals in our blood remain for long periods of time. Stress affects the onset, treatment, and recovery from the following diseases and conditions: cardiovascular disease, cancer, angina, diabetes, tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis, hypertension, ulcers, and wait a minute, I thought AIDS was a bloodborne pathogen. Well, yes, HIV is a bloodborne pathogen, and it can turn into full-blown AIDS. And stress can take HIV and turn it into full-blown AIDS. Take HIV, turn it into full-blown AIDS. Muscle-related conditions, allergies, common cold, warts, skin rashes, loss of hair, graying of hair. Stress. Where's the real danger? Acute stress or chronic stress? The chronic stress, absolutely. Unrelieved stress causes the danger. That chronic, unrelieved stress causes the danger. Mental effects of an ongoing stressor: mental fatigue, loss of spontaneity and creativity, confusion, forgetfulness, difficulty in making decisions, anxiety, depression, lower self-worth, lower intellectual functioning, boredom, emotional hypersensitivity. Do you know the people you just barely look at them and they explode? You touch them with a feather and they just, yeah. Feelings of isolation and alienation, tendency towards suppressing feelings, withdrawal, aggression, quick temper, loss of control, increased risk-taking behavior, increased drug use and abuse. These are mental effects of ongoing stressors. Did you know, and we're saying back of what we talked in our last class, did you know just 1 minute of anger can suppress your immune system for up to 6 hours? And again, Dr. Khanna said that can also put in stress, and it'd be the same thing. Part 1, stress effect on the body. Let's look at natural treatments for stress and anxiety. We're going back to writing down prescriptions. If you got your pen and paper. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. We were teaching a class, Dr. Agatha and I were up in New York, and we were teaching a class. It was a several-day class to physicians out of New York City. And this lady, we'd sing this song as we would get up, as we'd start a new program. And this lady, and it was a large hall, and this lady in the back stands up, and she says, I need to tell y'all something. She says, my specialty as a physician is in bone marrow. And she says, when a person, their bone marrow produces, when they're happy, their bone marrow produces a chemical that builds the immune system. But when a person is not happy, the bone marrow does not produce that chemical to help boost the immune system. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Disease is sometimes produced and is often greatly aggravated by the imagination. Many are lifelong invalids who might be well if they only thought so. Do you know anybody like that? I had an aunt that way. Husband was quite wealthy. He owned an oil company. If she read about a disease, if you went to visit her and you had a disease, she had the disease. And she would literally go to Mayo Clinic constantly to get it checked out if she had that disease. It was in her head. Okay, here's our prescriptions. You ready? Courage, hope, faith, sympathy, love promotes health and prolonging of life. A contented mind, a cheerful spirit is health to the body and strength to the soul. Is that an OTC? Do you have to have a prescription for that? No. It's free. Gratitude, rejoicing, benevolence, that's giving, helping others. Trusting God's love and care. These are health's greatest safeguards. Again, is that not free? It's huge. The relation that exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health to a far greater degree than many realize. Many of the diseases from which men suffer are the result of mental depression. Now, here's the things that you don't want: grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust. All tend to break down life forces and invite decay and death. What were those? Grief, anxiety, discontent. You're not happy with your car. You want Susie's car. You're not happy with your job. You want someone else's job. Remorse, guilt, distrust all tend to break down the life forces and to invite decay and death. How can I manage my stress? We're alive. It's a management issue. You can't plumb get rid of it. We have to manage it. There's controllables and non-controllables. I have this lady who came in, and her son shot a state trooper. He's in prison the rest of his life. She was all tore up, upset. It was causing health issues. And I said, crying and fretting, will that get your son out of prison? She said, no. Is there anything that you can do to get your son out of prison besides pray for some miracle? She said, no. I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. You take a piece of paper and you draw a big T. And on the top of this side, you put controllables. On the top of this side, you put non-controllables and everything you can do. And you write down all your stressors out there. And whatever's on another piece of paper, and you take each one of those and say, is there something I can do about this? Like, we can save money here at the church. We can turn light bulbs out. We can save money at home by, what food that we buy. There's controllable things. We can, eat all our food and don't waste it. Just simple things. Those are controllables. Then there's non-controllables, like you got to pay your taxes. That's a non-controllable. And so the things that she could control, she put down here. The things she couldn't control over here, she put here. And I said, put boys in prison. Because there's everything you can do. So she did that. And I said, now I want you to go and I want you to sit down with God and have a quiet meeting with Him. Tear that paper plumb in half. Set the one down here that you can do something about, the controllables. We'll come back to that. But the one that is non-controllables, you give that to God. Will He take it? Absolutely. I said, God loves your boy more than you love your boy. He will take care of him. Let Him have that. Here's the problem. Don't take it back. Many people will take it back and waller in the mud with it. And just waller and waller and waller and have OCD on it. Give it to God and leave it with God. Now, Satan would come back and say, your boy's in prison, your boy's in prison. What she'd do is she'd say, that ain't mine, that's God's, and go and get out of here. And it would help. But he'd still come and say, your boy's in prison, that's God. So I said, here's what you do. So I had this lady come in, and I told her this story. This has been over 21 years ago. It was a Friday morning. Mary Lou's teaching the kids up at the house, up on the mountain, doing homeschooling. And I'm helping 4 different ladies. It's a Friday morning. It's around 10:30 in the morning, 11 o'clock, somewhere in there. Door opens, and I notice this lady comes in. She goes around, comes back behind the counter. And she says, you Walt? Yes, ma'am. And she looked like a whooped dog. I mean, she did not look good. And she dressed real weird. And I said, can I help you? She said, they told me you could help me with your herbs. And whoever grew up on a farm with cows, can you look at a cow and tell she ain't doing good? Well, she was a cow ain't doing good. And I knew I did not have the time. Mary Lou was gone. I was by myself, and it was going to take a while. I said, can you come back Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and I'll help you? She says, I'll be there. She walks out, and about right here, she stops, and she says, turns at me, and she says, I will be the worst case you ever dealt with. She turns back, walks out. And the 5 of us, the 4 ladies and me, were wondering, what just come in here? Monday morning, she comes. She sits down. I sit down, and I start a history, asking various things that I ask. And she says she'd been to a psychiatrist, and they had done medication, drugs. They didn't work. She'd been to a psychologist. Therapy didn't work. Someone told her maybe the herbs that I had would help her for her something going on with her brain. And so I continue the history. And she says, I need to tell you something. I said, what's that? She says, I can make things levitate. Do you believe me? Yes, ma'am, I do. Do we have a problem? Do we know what the problem is? We do. Right off, boom, we know what it is. I start praying. Didn't say anything else. And so we continue on, asking questions on a history. She said, I need to tell you something else. I said, yes, ma'am. She says, see that O'Reilly's Auto Parts across the street they just built? Yes, ma'am. She said, I can tell you, I've never been in there. I can tell you where everything is without ever being in there. Do you believe me? Yes, ma'am, I do. We have validation. So we continue on. She tells me that she's being lifted up out of bed at night, thrown against the wall. Her husband verified that later, and other things I did not know even happened. And so I change gears, and we know what we're dealing with, and I mention Jesus, and she starts shaking like she's having a seizure. Not a grand mal seizure where you flop on the floor, but I mean, she's shaking. And I said, what's wrong? She says, they don't like that name. So we continue on. I thought, well, this is science. Let's test. So I said, God, something about God, and she did not shake. Again, I test again. Let's do a double test. I say, Jesus. She starts a shaking again. Well, I said, ma'am, you're possessed. And here's what I want you to do. She didn't bring no money with her. I gave her some flaxseed to make for, what was it we talked about earlier? What will flaxseed do? Help with serotonin. I gave her some B-complex, and I gave her some trace minerals. You got fats, proteins, carbohydrates, and you then have vitamins, which are the catalyst that kicks on fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Then there's a catalyst that kicks on the vitamins. And if you don't have these catalysts at full 8 cylinders, these aren't 8 cylinders. And so this one back here is minerals. Minerals have to be 8 cylinders to turn on vitamins to 8 cylinders then to kick on the fats, protein, carbohydrates that you ate at 8 cylinders, but they just don't turn on unless you have the minerals. And so I gave her some trace minerals. And I said, every time they talk to you, I want you to say, in Jesus' name, Satan, get thee behind me. I said, I don't care if you say it for 20 or 30 minutes. Just keep saying it till they don't talk to you. I said, I want to see you next Monday morning. So we get up, we start walking out, and I remembered that some Gideons had been there the week, a couple weeks before, shortly before, and he'd given me a little white New Testament. And I gave it to her. I said, I want you to read this. And so she left. And I said, I want you to come back next Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Can you do that? She said, yes. So she comes back the next Monday morning, and she looked normal. Looked fine. She didn't look like a whoop dog. And I said, how are you doing? And she said, I'm doing great. I said, what happened? Are they still trying to talk to you? She said, no, they can't talk to me. I said, why? She said, I say what you told me to say. They cannot talk to me anymore. I said, did you get a chance to read that little book I gave you? She says, oh, yes. She said, I especially like the first 4 books in that book, which meant she'd read more than the first 4 books. And I said, why? She said, because it talks about Jesus. And she didn't shake. So I tell this story to the lady with the boys in prison. And I said, I want you to now start saying, in Jesus' name, Satan, get thee behind me. And I said, you ain't got nothing compared to having demons in you. And I said, just whenever Satan comes and says your boy's in prison to torment you, you just say and start saying, in Jesus' name, Satan, get thee behind me. And just keep saying it until he quits bothering you. And it worked. And you look at your stressors. Our stressors are nothing compared to that. Hopefully, y'all's aren't that bad. And it works. It really does. And so as you look at the controllables, the non-controllables, you give the non-controllables to God. Then the controllable ones, you pick them back up, take God's hand, and you work with those with Him. And that is huge on addressing stress. There's issues of nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, fresh air, rest, and trust in God. And I find those controllables are huge when we apply them. We talked about today for the brain. Is stress a brain problem? Now, this physician, he was actually he was a top surgeon in his field in Philadelphia. And he also was a trauma physician, highfalutin trauma physician. And I asked him one time, I said, tell me, what are the keys to health that you have found as a trauma physician, as a top surgeon? He says you've got to identify the organ or the primary organ or system that's a problem. So with this, what's the primary organ or system? The brain. That's exactly it. It's the organ. And then you have to find the secondary and tertiary organs and systems that can affect the brain. What other system out there can affect brain function? That's right. Digestion, circulation, cardiac health, those can affect. So he said, then what you do is you have to make sure that you're not doing anything to harm the primary, secondary, tertiary systems. And as we look here at controllables, what could cause harm to the brain? Could processed foods, sugars, hog jowl and chitlins? Hog jowl and chitlins? Do you know those? It's a good thing. It's kind of like when I tell kids about Twinkies and they don't know what Twinkies are. I say, it's a good thing. You got a good mama. The lack of exercise, dehydration, not getting sunshine, all the problems with temperance, from drugs to alcohol to whatever. Living in Chicago or living in LA, not getting sleep and not believing in God. Those are bad things that can happen. And then you have to then provide what the body, those organs need. Well, they need these in the right proportion. And there's herbs that can help with, let's say it's a stress issue. What are some herbs that can help with stress? Ashwagandha. Yeah, it's a great one. I use that one to fall asleep. Well, she hands it to me at night for me to fall asleep. Because my brain just don't do too good at not getting done what I need to do today. And I've got a lot on paper and it don't get done. Some days I don't get one thing crossed off, and I've got everything else I want to get done tomorrow, and I ain't get done what I want to do today, and that drives me nuts. And she knows it, and so she gives me 1 or 2 ashwagandhas. What else can help to calm the nerves down? Chamomile, yes. Hops, lavender, valerian, wild lettuce, skullcap. All those are good. What else? Lemon balm. An old doc in 1977 taught me at Florida Hospital. He said, Walt, if you want to ever help a person, and I was doing stop smoking programs. And he says, if you want to ever help a person that has major stress, he said, B-complex is the best thing I ever found. B-complex can really help. And then I learned from Neil Nedley about lithium orotate. Who's ever heard of lithium orotate? Lithium orotate is amazing. It's O-R-O-T-A-T-E. I was in Winnipeg, about an hour north of Winnipeg, I was talking to this lady. They have 5,000 acres that they farm. Can you imagine farming 5,000 acres? She's got a combine, her husband's got a combine, and they go for it. And she was telling me about in Russia, she's Russian, and before the wall fell, and Soviet Union was still really strong, she said the Soviet government would have their citizens go take baths in lithium springs, like our hot springs here. Take baths in it transdermally. It would go in. They'd have them drink it. And I learned about lithium orotate from Neil Nedley. And it was actually Depression on the Way Out. That's where I learned about it. He talks about lithium orotate and Depression on the Way Out. Lithium's good. Magnesium, excellent for helping with stress. There's all kinds of herbs that God has given. Kava. Who knows Dr. Phil Collins? Phil likes kava. Kava works real well. Kava. I like kava better than valerian, skullcap, hops, passionflower, wild lettuce, those guys, because they can make you sleepy, and I believe people need to work. So during the daytime, you can take kava, and it can calm you down, but it doesn't make you sleepy. The same thing is true with ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, sometimes Mary Lou will hand me an ashwagandha in the morning, and she can tell I need the ashwagandha first thing in the morning, and that will kind of slow me down a little bit. But it doesn't make me sleepy. It doesn't make me sleepy at night. It just turns this down so then I can fall asleep. Yeah. But kava is another good one. I don't have to go through those individually. Let's take a little time and just open the floor to questions that y'all might have. Someone asked me to talk about, there's two of them. Let me hit real fast. And let me go here. Let's see here. Well, we'll get there in a moment. Sang is another one. Y'all know what sang is? Who knows what sang is? Ginseng. And what's it called? What's it called when you're going out picking sang? Singing. That's right, singing. That's right. Well, it didn't do it. I don't know if we can get that one that has that maybe it's the very beginning. It has that little QR code. So they asked me to talk about Parkinson's. Who knows what Tyvek is? It's the stuff you wrap around your house, that pink stuff or white stuff, or like your FedEx that you can't tear hardly a bit. DuPont invented that, and the man who invented it was one of my patients. And he came in with Parkinson's. So bad he could not ambulate on his own, just not doing good at all. And as we applied a healthy lifestyle, what we found was he was drinking diet soft drinks with aspartame. And when you stopped the aspartame, it significantly helped his Parkinson's symptoms, significantly. After he was with us, he thought he was ready to die. He got so good that he actually hired or rented a yacht out in the Atlantic and took his family out sailing in the Atlantic. That's how much better he felt. He could ambulate on his own. He was just doing so much better. Another item that can help with Parkinson's, which y'all have heard of, is riding a bicycle. Riding a bicycle can be beneficial to help with Parkinson's. A physician figured that out. Another one is dancing. I know most of us don't dance, but dancing with your spouse. You know, the problem is when you're dancing not with your spouse. The other one's boxing, but I don't agree with that one because Parkinson's is a brain injury, and who wants to hit your head again? That just don't make sense. So I don't recommend boxing. Another one is far infrared sauna. Now, we've seen very good success with far infrared sauna. Literally, people come in shaking and do a sauna, and for 2 to 4 hours, not shake at all. And they will get one themselves, and they'll use it multiple times a day, and that can be very beneficial for Parkinson's. Another one that was found very beneficial, but it quit working, and that is CBD oil. And it doesn't have to have CBD with THC in it. It can be a non-THC CBD oil. And it was finding good results, but then it quit working. Well, they used to use a CO2 extraction for CBD oil, and then they quit. And they went to another extraction that was more economical, and it quit working. And so they've now come back with the CO2 extraction, and it can be beneficial. Another one that works very well is something called copaiba. Copaiba. Who's ever heard of copaiba? It is the most anti-inflammatory phytochemical in the world. Copiaba, I think. Oh, thank you. See, I took phonics and Southern just don't work too good. So, however this lady said to spell it, that's how you spell it. AIBA, copaiba. It works very, very well. Works very similar to what CBD does, but it actually does better many times than the CBD does. It also, this is cool. I've got a guy now that's been almost 4 years, epileptic seizures, daily basis, grand mal seizures. He was a building contractor. He had to stop his career as a building contractor. And he now has been right at 4 years, not one seizure, by using copaiba. It's amazing. What happens is, University of Florida has done a lot of research on CBD, and I called them to find out why does CBD work for some people and it doesn't work for other people. And they said it depends on the level of cannabinoids. If your cannabinoids are high already, which the CBD does, helps to raise the cannabinoids, which also the copaiba does also, then they're already up, so that's not going to be a problem. It's not going to help. It's like if your B12 is already 1,300, taking B12 may not really help you much. And so they were actually, the University of Florida back several years ago was working on a home kit that you could use to test your cannabinoid level, but it never happened. I don't know what happened. But so that's why CBD works, or it may work for a while, and then it doesn't because it got it up, and then, it's just not helping anymore because you're already there. So that's what we've seen to be beneficial with Parkinson's. Also, Parkinson's sage extract, sage, 2 mLs 3 times a day, but sage can be beneficial for Parkinson's. It's a brain issue, so you want to stop anything that may harm the brain, nutrition, alcohol, illicit drugs, tobacco, anything that can harm the brain, and then give the brain what it needs. The second item that someone wanted me to talk about was female hormones. Yes, Mary Lou brings up a good point. Foods that are inflammatory, back to Parkinson's. What foods are inflammatory? We know that nightshades, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, pepper, tobacco, lobelia. Lobelia is an herb. It's a nightshade. Maybe you don't smoke, but your spouse does. Or maybe you work in a place that smokes and you're breathing that smoke. So any of the inflammatory foods. Also, we're seeing significant issues with wheat. What used to be 14 chromosomes now is 42 chromosomes. And now they're spraying it with Roundup. Last year, a study came out on corn and is linking corn having the same problems that we're seeing now with wheat. I'm not surprised. It's GMO. It's sprayed with Roundup. I expect to see the same thing with soy. We're now spraying alfalfa with Roundup. And anything you spray with Roundup, and Roundup goes on the soil, it binds the magnesium. And we were talking about magnesium earlier, the problems with not having enough magnesium. It was Becky. We were talking about that. And what happens is, Becky's listening. And so what happens is any of the wheat, corn, soy that we eat, and it's sprayed Roundup, you're not going to get now magnesium from those 3 foods because the Roundup bound it and it cannot uptake it. And so I asked a friend of ours who is a jockey. I mean, we're talking, she's like highfalutin jockey. I said, are they having any problems in Lexington with the horses in magnesium deficiency? She looked at me and said, why are you asking that question? I said, because, and I explained it to her. She said, that's why. She said, yes, the horses are having problems with magnesium deficiency because the corn and the alfalfa has been sprayed with Roundup, and now those horses aren't having adequate magnesium. So yes, inflammatory foods can be an issue. Any of those foods that could be inflammatory. And processed foods, yes. Harvard says the number one cause of inflammation is processed foods. Yes. Pardon? But we're now seeing some problems. I was in Sweden 2 years ago, and when I was there teaching, I was there for 2 weeks and seeing people, and I was getting people saying they were gluten intolerant. I'm going, why? I'm in the EU. There should not be having problems with gluten intolerance here. And then I come back home and I start investigating. We're now seeing more and more problems in Western Europe with it. And you're exactly right. It was that way. My hypothesis is, and I may be plumb wrong, but my hypothesis is, what did we send Russia in the 80s and 90s? Copious boatloads. Wheat. Our wheat. Wheat. We sent it to Russia. Does it cross-pollinate? I'm concerned that maybe it's getting to Western Europe now through cross-pollination. And that's why we're now seeing problems in Western Europe. Yeah. Yes, and so that's a non-wheat product. Yes, and even if it's a wheat organic, it's still wheat. It just means hopefully they didn't spray Roundup on it. And then we even have einkorn, which is supposed to be the low chromosome. But Mary Lou ordered a 50-pound bag, and I sent it to UT, and they tested it, 42 chromosomes, and they said it was 14 or 16. But UT tested it was 42 chromosomes. Then she orders another one from another company that's einkorn, supposedly 16, I think that one was chromosomes. I sent it to a lab up in New England, 42 chromosomes. So I asked UT and I asked the lab in New England, are these people lying to us? They said, probably not. It just cross-pollinated and they didn't know it, and they aren't continuing to test their wheat. I was in Honduras a couple weeks ago, and I, you see what their corn looks like. It looks like corn when I was a kid. And then we're driving along, and there's this, beautiful corn. Vivid green, just beautiful corn sitting out in the middle of another cornfield that was just, Honduras corn. And I asked the guy, what kind of corn is that? He goes, that's just hybrid corn. It's in the middle of their other cornfield. They're ruining the rest of that corn and all the seed that comes from that. And that seed, you can't have them together. It's true. So again, where do we go to get our food? Our backyard. And grow our own if we can, or get together with church members and folks and try to find a place that you can grow. The other item was female hormones.
I was going to ask you to talk about female hormones.
Okay, is that what you're going to ask?
Yeah, I want to hear about this.
Okay, so when Mary Lou and I came back to Tennessee, almost 22 years now ago, the number one thing we dealt with was female hormones and stress. Today, cancer is a huge one that I now deal with, but female hormones. The best thing we have found for female hormones, number one, the fuel. Fuel. What are they eating? Is it healthy food? Is it processed food versus whole food, plant-based with variety that Harvard tells us we need, that Cornell tells us that we need? How many of y'all watch Forks Over Knives? You may tell you the backstory to that. So I'm taking nutrition from T. Colin Campbell from Cornell. This is amazing, him to admit this in a Cornell class. 2 things he omitted. And it's well important to share with y'all, to tell you what our responsibility is. So Campbell goes into the study. He's raised just up the road here in Virginia, in Southwest Virginia. And moved when he was like 10 years old, 8 years old, somewhere in there. And they had a dairy farm, they had beef cattle. The same thing that I grew up in. Mary Lou grew up in a dairy farm. And so Campbell, he has this hypothesis that we need more dairy and we need more meat. And so he convinces Cornell to do a study. It's a 20-year study, the most comprehensive nutrition study ever done on why we need more meat and more dairy. He gets into the numbers, and he finds out that it's just the opposite. Just the opposite. So here's what Campbell tells us. He admits it to us. Do I play with the numbers? Admitting that Cornell, he is the chairman of the nutrition department, admitting that maybe I'll play with the numbers because the dairy industry and the meat industry are supporting this. Cornell's supporting it. Do I just play with the numbers? Who took stats? We learned how to play with numbers. Yeah. And then, this is the second thing he tells us, that is amazing coming out of Cornell. He could hear his father's voice saying, in Southwest Virginia, Colin, never lie. Colin, never lie. His father is dead, but he could hear that voice when he was a little boy, his father telling him, Colin never lied, and he chose to tell the truth, and we now have a word called plant-based. That was T. Colin Campbell who coined the word plant-based. We now have the China study that we know of, based on his father telling him as a little boy, Colin never lied. Colin never lied. And I think that's huge. You know, as parents and grandparents to instill that into our grandchildren. So as we deal with hormones, number one is nutrition. The whole food plant-based diet is the best. We can get girls come who've gone to infertility clinics, they can't get pregnant, and if they will eat raw, if they'll eat raw, many times they get pregnant because they just weren't giving the hormones, their body, what it needed in nutrition. Minimizing stress is important on female hormones. Stress blows the adrenals. Blown adrenals affect hormones. Sleep is very important for the female, for the hormones. Adequate sleep. We found something called wild yam cream. Now, we used to use HRTs, which were hormone replacement therapy, and you'd use like Premarin. Now, what's Premarin? Premarin is pregnant mare urine. And what they're doing is they're taking a pill that's horse pee, that has estrogen from the horse. You want to take that? No. Well, that's HRTs. Well, it had problems with breast issues, with cancer. And then they started using things like twice-cooked soy milk. And twice-cooked soy milk actually has as much Premarin per cup as one pill of Premarin, which is amazing. It has as much estrogen as one Premarin pill. But it still didn't deal with the breast issue. So then a guy by the Dr. James Lee in California. Did anybody ever hear Lee's work in California? He did research, and he started looking at progesterone cream and the benefits of progesterone cream. That was back in probably the 90s. And it saw benefit, but still didn't really correct the problem. And then there was people like Cynthia Johnston, who worked for Dr. Lee as a researcher with him. And then there was Dr. Anna. You've heard of Dr. Anna's wild yam cream, and Barbara O'Neill talks about in Australia. Dr. Anna's work. And we find that wild yam cream works superior to the progesterone cream. It is minimal, very minimal, that we'll find somebody that wild yam doesn't work, and then we'll recommend the progesterone cream. It's usually the wild yam does the job. And so wild yam transdermally stabilizes progesterone. When you stabilize progesterone, you stabilize estrogen, and you stabilize testosterone. We do. How do you use it? Do a quarter of a teaspoon twice a day. If the lady's still cycling, she stops on her first day for 7 days and then starts again. If she's not cycling anymore, she just uses it straight through. And a quarter of a teaspoon, you can put it here, 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 here. Just now we're learning just pretty well anywhere. I have some ladies put it on their face. And that works very, very well. Another thing we find, a lady comes into the store one day, and she comes in, and I'm at the herb cabinet. I forget to drink. I get talking so much. And she comes in, and she said, I need some nettle. You got nettle? And I said, I think I'm out. And I looked, I was out. I said, I think I'm out. Let me check underneath. And I'm looking underneath. She says, you better have some. And I looked, I said, I don't. She says, you better get some, or Cott County's going to make national news again. And I said, why? She said, as many women as you and Mary Lou got on that stuff, we will make national news again. It helps so much, because what happens is nettle tea, stinging nettle, is the most nutritious phytochemical herb in North America. You got it in Florida, you got it in Alaska. If you go up to Wisconsin, Minnesota, you'll find ladies putting it in soups and stews. Mary Lou and I were up in Canada. A little doctor about this tall. She looked like a little 12-year-old. She is a physician. And she came over for breakfast where we were staying. She'd come carrying in this stuff. I said, what's that? She said, breakfast. And she was from Canada. And she cooked it up like spinach, and it was nettle. Very nutritious. It didn't taste as good as spinach, but it was still this food. So nettle is very, very good for female hormones because it's full of nutrients. It's got a lot of calcium, and it helps with the adrenals. The next one is, yes? Yes. Let me talk about that after. And so the other one is flaxseed. Flaxseed has phytoestrogens in it, and flaxseed can be very beneficial. So that's what we do for female hormones, and we have good success. Sometimes we may add, if it's not enough, we'll add a little extra with something called Vitex, also called chasteberry. Chasteberry? Chase tree. And that it's already got that. That's still in the wild yam in it, but it's just a little extra, and that can also help as an herb to help the body do what it needs to do for hormones. Yes, especially if they had a hysterectomy. Yes. Primrose oil is, yes, very beneficial. Another one that works, who knows Lee Willard? He did come here. Okay. Lee talks very positive. He talked about it, helping his wife. He's very open about it. When she had hormone issues years ago and she could not get things under control, he said the best thing that worked for her, and he speaks on this publicly, so I'm not telling anything on him, is oat straw. Oat straw is a very good one also. Anything else, Mary Lee? Oh, yes, Ester Sense. There's a new item called Ester Sense, and it's just herbs, and it helps to get rid of those xenoestrogens, those bad estrogens that we get from plastics and different things, and we found that to be very beneficial. Ester Sense. ESTRO. Sense. SENSE. Ester Sense. And finding good results. Yeah, your foundation is the wild yam, the flaxseed, the nettle. Proper water, get your exercise, get your sleep. You know, the laws of health. Works very well. Fenugreek. Mary Lou will have ladies come in that even adopt, and they'll be able to breastfeed using fenugreek. And the other one that you're doing now is milk thistle. Milk thistle to increase breast production. In 1969, who all are from Tennessee originally? Born and raised here. In 1969, this is amazing. In 1969, Tennessee was the 4th healthiest state in the United States. Isn't that crazy? So Nashville, Department of Health, looked at this. And 2009, we were the fourth unhealthiest. The fourth unhealthiest. Total opposite. From 69 to 09. What happened? Party. You're right. So in 1969, first thing Nashville found was our diet had changed. If you went in 1969, you went out to eat, you went to Grandma's house to go out to eat. We didn't have restaurants up on the mountain. We didn't have the money to go out to eat. In 2009, we had a lot of people that didn't even eat at home. They just ate out all the time. Hardee's, McDonald's, junk food. The next thing was what we drank. In 1969, you had those little old soft drinks, and we didn't get them very often either. It was a treat. Some people got a dope. Remember the dopes? Dope and a moon pie? Yes. But they were little drinks. And then by 2009, we had something called gulps. 48-ounce drinks, and you'd fill it several times. Now I told you today about the guy that did 3 liters, of Mountain Dew. So what we drank in 1969 versus 2009 made a huge difference. The next one was exercise. In 2009, we had recess. I rode my bicycle to school unless I was in trouble. Then I had to walk to school. But we exercised. In 2009, kids weren't exercising. And the fourth item, breastfeeding. I have girls come in and they have kids with croup and colic and, are you breastfeeding? No, that's gross. Gross is what they tell me. Or my girlfriend don't do that. No, that's the way it's made. The baby that's the best food that you can give that baby. And Nashville's trying from this research to get more breastfeeding. And breastfeeding is huge. One of the problems is just insufficient amount of milk. Fenugreek is probably the big one. The milk thistle she's finding. Alfalfa. Another one, a real good one, is marshmallow root. What else, Mary Lee? Red raspberry. Blessed thistle. Pardon? Alfalfa. Mm-hmm. So, this is funny, and Mary Lou doesn't get offended because I tell this. When Walter was born, my dad said, son, just treat her like a cow. We were raised up on a dairy farm. I was raised up on a dairy farm. She was raised up on a dairy farm, so she knew what he was talking about. So how do you get a cow to have milk? 3 major things. Water, water, water. Right? Number 2, good nutrition. We'd buy a herd out of Wisconsin. We had to feed more grain than they had to in Wisconsin. If you're in Wisconsin and bought a herd out of Minnesota, you had to feed more grain than they did in Minnesota. Why? Our soil. We just didn't have as good a soil. And Minnesota had the best soil, better than Wisconsin. Wisconsin had better soil than us. So you had to look at the feed, look at the best nutrition. The more nutrition you gave the cow, the more milk she produced. And the other one, keep her calm. Keep her calm is very important. You want those dairy cows to be calm in the milk parlor. If they're upset, agitated, they do not produce as much milk. Same thing for a human. Water, nutrition, keep her calm. And that's huge. Oh, yes. Mary Lou tells them, when the mama nurses, she tells the mamas to pray that God will bless that meal because it's the baby's meal. It's the same thing. And so to bless that meal, that she'll have good milk flow and will bless that milk in the baby's stomach. Yeah. Okay. Now other questions. Yes? Tinnitus is a tough one. In Africa, as we were talking earlier, in Africa, they say that ginkgo biloba works. And when I go places, I ask, what do you have for tinnitus? And the Africans they'll tell you, just like we would say for the lungs, Mullen. If it's a lung issue, we would say Mullen. There, if you say tinnitus, they will say you need the ginkgo biloba. Normally it's 2 mLs 3 times a day. Dehydration can affect tinnitus, and it has to do with the conductivity, the electricity in the body. Dehydration increases conductivity, and that increased conductivity can cause tinnitus. Also, too much sodium can cause conductivity to go up, which it's the conductivity is the issue.
You mean sodium in the diet or sodium in the blood?
In the diet. Or it can be sodium in the body. Yeah, in the blood, in the body. So if there's too much sodium in the body, then your conductivity goes up. It's the salinity in the body. Another one is, I had an older guy that would use tea tree oil in his ear, and he said that worked. I had another guy said that he would put coconut oil on a Q-tip, and that worked for him. There's something called D-vertigo, and it has essential oils in it. Like, what is it, 4 or 5 essential oils in that? D-vertigo. And they'll put it behind their ear, and it helps with their tinnitus. There's a product called Ring Stop, that helps some people. The best I've ever seen in Ring Stop, that's an oral, isn't it? Yes. Who makes that? Natural Factors. I don't know. Just Ring Stop. Yeah. The best research I've ever read on it was an NIH years ago. They used kudzu IV, and it had a 40 to 60% effective rate. I don't remember. It was years ago. Yes, try it. Yes, try it. Yeah, because I want to go back and look at it, because now for the last couple of months I'm now having tinnitus. I'm hearing that ringing all the time. NAC? Quercetin? Did that help with tinnitus? Okay. 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 Yes. Good. I'm still searching for a big bat. Any other questions? Yes.
My daughter is watching at home. And she
Hello, daughter.
me, and she's like, ask him. We moved from Florida,
What part?
Central Florida,
Whereabouts?
Longwood.
Longwood, yeah.
And so one of the big things everyone's had issues with is seasonal depression, like we miss the sun.
Yes.
So especially when the time changes and the sun's not out, do you have something that helps with that?
Yes. Seasonal depression, it can be vitamin D. Do you know what your vitamin D levels are? That can do it. You want it somewhere around 80 to 100. That can definitely help big time. There's an army in Africa that got SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Africa? They got plenty of sunshine in Africa. Why'd they have seasonal affective disorder in Africa? When I go to Canada, they have seasonal affective disorder. When I go to Minnesota, they have seasonal affective disorder. When I go to Alaska, they definitely have it. Africa? What happened? So they brought this expert in from somewhere. I forgot where he was from. And they had him, it was the army that got it, only the soldiers that got it. And he starts looking around and trying to figure out, and he goes, why you got sunglasses on? Why do you have sunglasses on outside? And they said, it's the new uniform policies. Take them off. Take them off. It was not allowing the ultraviolet light to go through the eye to stimulate the pineal gland to convert the the tryptophan into serotonin. And so theirs was a serotonin level. But vitamin D can also do it, and B12 can also do it, a low B12.
Speaking of B12, I think it was this week I was reading an article about a link they found with cognitive issues with B12. So
Yes.
as a vegetarian, what are your suggestions?
I asked Dr. Agatha that question because at the time, the North American Division was telling members through publication that we all should be, taking B12. And I asked because mine was 1,200 and something, and I didn't do B12. So I asked Dr. Agatha, I said, what do you think about this? She said, Brother Walt, I find more B12 deficiency in meat eaters than I do in total vegetarians. So there could be a propensity, but it's going back to what we talked about earlier. It's not a cookie cutter. Everyone's different, and you only definitively know by doing a B12. Yes.
When I was working in Japan, she also had a paper that gave many studies as to the connection between eating sugar, processed sugar, and
That's interesting. She never told me about that one. So you're saying, Dr. Agatha, for the people out there listening, she had numerous information on where eating too much processed sugar could affect B12. Okay, that's good to know. Yes. Okay, that's good to know. Yes. That's interesting. Just the opposite than what they would tell you. So to go back to her question, what can you do? I would look at, is she getting sunshine? She lives here. And looking at her vitamin D, looking at B12, that would be important. Right. You've got cyanocobalamin and methylcobalamin, cyano and methyl. And you're exactly right. You do not want the cyano. You want the methyl because the methyl will cross the blood-brain barrier. Yes. And also you want it sublingual. Do not take pills of B12. The gut does not absorb it well. You do much better on sublingual. Gummies, keeping it in the mouth, you just want to keep it in the mouth and absorb in the mouth. Yes, Mary? It is for depression, flaxseed, and also flaxseed's very important for depression, and magnesium is known as the depression drug. Yeah. Yes. So if that person isn't getting a lot, you can use light therapy. It's the broad spectrum light. It's the full spectrum light is what you want. Yes. And so you can put it there as you're reading or whatever if you're not getting sunshine. Neil does? Okay.
With the magnesium and the vitamin D, that story you were telling in the sermon, is it a certain type of magnesium?
There's a bunch of kind of magnesiums.
Vitamin D specifically,
Citrate's what I used. I like citrate. It's broad spectrum. It's like a shotgun, not like a rifle, like Magtine, which is for the brain for dementia. It's broad spectrum, so it's good for the brain, good for the colon, good for the nerves, good for the muscles, and it also has very good bioavailability, where some mags don't.
Did you say anything about using lithium for someone who has dementia?
Yes. I can. Actually, I first learned about lithium for preventing dementia. And then I saw where Neil was using it for depression. It works very, very good for depression, lithium orotate. Sometimes I've seen folks have to take as much as 100 milligrams of lithium orotate to get their lithium level up to get out of the depressed state because their lithium level was low. But yes, lithium's very good. It is. Lithium is an element like zinc or copper. It's natural in water, in like springs and what all.
So that's
In the
something
ground.
you can get tested for?
Yes, you can get your physician can test you for lithium level. Mm-hmm. Yes.
If your level is low or high, not only you can, what is it, sometimes called keep your range where it's supposed to be. But I've also heard people say, well, those ranges aren't always
Correct.
what it's supposed to be.
Yes. Those ranges are based on the average population. And it's even, I can actually get labs from another part of the country, like up north, and have different numbers because of the exposure to what those people have in that area is different. So that the average of those people and the average of these people can differentiate. And as we mentioned on vitamin D, it says 30 to 100. And then the neurologists say anything less than 90, less than 60 is too low. We're now seeing in B12, they used to say, oh, don't go over 1,000, maybe 1,100. Now they're saying, 1,300 is fine. And we're probably going to see, just as we saw a change in magnesium going from mag serum testing to magnesium RBC from the red blood cell, we're probably going to see B12 change from the serum to a cellular test that's more accurate. And then there's the issue, again, Dr. Agatha taught me this. I called her one time, and I had 5 patients that had their white count was in the low 30s. And so I called her when I first went into lifestyle, and I said, Dr. Agatha, I have 5 people that their white count is 31, 30, 33 in that level. And that was low. Any suggestions? She says, Brother Walt, are they total vegetarians? I said, how did you know? She said, because that's a normal number for total vegetarians. She said, when you eat meat, when you eat dairy, your white count has to go up and fight. So let's say it's World War II, you're in England, you're one of the fighter jets, and the alarm goes off, radar picks up, Germans coming across the English Canal. Boom, you're up in the air dogfighting and shooting them down. Well, when they go back, you don't stay up there. You come on back down and you wait for the next ones. So when we eat meat and dairy, it's like dogfighting. But if we don't eat meat and dairy, we don't have to have as high of a white count to fight that. And so it goes down, she said, which was quite interesting. Because the typical person is a dairy and meat eater. Yeah. Yes? To help what now? I don't know that one. Yeah. Yes.
So the weight count in a plant-based person would be lower. Are there what else would typically be lower?
Your BUN is going to be lower. Your blood urea nitrogen is going to be lower. A high BUN is considered, according to Cornell, an affluent diagnosis because affluent eats more meat and dairy and processed foods and whatever, and that's going to send the BUN, especially the meat and the dairy, meat for sure, is going to raise that BUN, and so that's going to be lower. Your cholesterol, sure, your cholesterol, but it's not. We used to say cholesterol if it has a mama. And see, how do you lower cholesterol? Well, God made us like your kitchen sink. And so you've got a little hole about this big that the water comes out of your spigot. And you have a hole about this big that the drain goes out. You can turn both spigots on, it is not going to overflow unless you occlude it. That's how it's engineered. But then let's say that he comes in and starts pouring in 5-gallon buckets of water in there. What's going to happen? It's going to overflow. So what the physicians know is that, especially with Southern, well, a lot of places, he's not going to get the patient to change their tongue. And so he gives them a drug, and the way NASA explained this was a NASA physician, and he was also an astronaut. What happens when you hew around a tree? The tree's going to die. So statin drugs hew around a tree. One of the branches off that tree is the production of cholesterol. And so what he now does is he reduces your human cholesterol down, and so now you're running on shrimp cholesterol, pig cholesterol, animal cholesterol to try to get that level down, because he knows the average person's not going to change their tongue. Here's the problem. There's another branch on that tree that produces coenzyme Q10, CoQ10. It shuts that down too. So anytime a physician writes an order for statin, he should write an order for you to take CoQ10. Because CoQ10 is so important for cell wall stability. It's so important for oxygenation. And even if you take red yeast rice, which is a natural statin, it's a statin, and you've got to take CoQ10 with it. Where bergamot and garlic don't. It's not a statin, and you don't have to take the CoQ10 in it. Another branch on that tree that NASA found, and this is what got NASA's attention, is it lowers a chemical that helps with short-term memory. And NASA astronauts were having short-term memory loss. And they said that is not an option. This was 2004. And they said we have to totally relook at how we address statins amongst astronauts because of short-term memory loss. And you have the problem with the leg cramps and all the other issues. So, yes, meat and dairy, anything that has a mama, has cholesterol. Cheese, butter, eggs, any of that has cholesterol. But we also know that how many of you ladies have gone from a dairy diet to a non-dairy diet, and you miss the richness of the dairy? So what did you start using? Mary Lou, what do you start using? Cashews, yeah. Cashew butter, cashew milk, cashew gravy, cashew loaf. You want it rich. You want to make that husband happy. And so cashews at that level lower HDL. It's not a meat item. It doesn't have cholesterol in it. It just makes your cholesterol come down. So cashews in moderation every once in a while is fine. But if you're doing a lot of cashews to try to get the same taste as dairy, you can lower your HDL. And we proved it in lab work. The other problem is Dr. William Davis, a cardiologist. He found that when we eat the American wheat, the wheat that we talked about before, it raises LDL. It doesn't have cholesterol in it, but it raises LDL. So if you want to lower cholesterol, yes, stopping meat, stopping dairy will do it. But you also want to make sure you're not eating copious amounts of cashews and that you're not eating a lot of the American wheat. Because the breads, the pastas, all the wheat that we do in our diet will have a propensity to raise LDL. So what can you use naturally? You can use the bergamot. Bergamot is a fruit. It was when I was down in Honduras just recently. It's something they have down there. It looks like a cross between an orange and a lemon. You can also use garlic. Allicin specific. You can use garlic, but allicin specifically is very good at lowering the cholesterol. Pardon? Allicin. Allicin is a chemical that's in garlic that's very good for the immune system, but also it lowers cholesterol. You can buy it. Yes, you can buy processed allicin. And there's the allicin, there's 24 cloves of garlic and 1 drop of allicin. Yes. It takes 24 cloves to make 1 drop It's kind of like, have you ever done bromelain? Bromelain comes from pineapple core. And so to get that much pineapple, or how many of y'all done D-mannose? Y'all know what D-mannose is? D-mannose is the best thing for urinary tract infections, IC, interstitial cystitis, or Honeymoon syndrome. And it's very concentrated cranberry and blueberry. And you do 1 teaspoon, 1 heaping teaspoon every waking 2 hours plus forced water. That's huge, forced water, fluids. And it collects that E. coli or the pathogen causing the urinary tract infection, the bladder infection. And then as you force fluids, you urinate that out, and it carries it out like a dump truck. Pardon? D-mannose, D-MANNOSE. Pardon? 1 heaping teaspoon every waking 2 hours until the episode is gone. If a person is prone to it, they can do 1 teaspoon twice a day, and that can be for prevention. What is the cause of, Mary Lou? Yes. Oh, stress can affect cholesterol. So, on the what causes us to get UTIs? What causes UTIs? A big one is dehydration. Another one is dark soft drinks. Another one is, now I'm come from healthcare, so let me just speak healthcare, is underwear that doesn't breathe. Cotton underwear works a lot better. Or tight pants where there's not breathing, or not having good hygiene. I had a lady the other day, her mama was wearing a garment for incontinence. That can cause a problem. And so one is changing it regularly. The other problem was proper wiping. The mother had gone to improper wiping. That can cause a problem. And so, but doing the D-mannose can be 1 heaping teaspoon at least twice a day can be beneficial, and that can help prevent. The issue is a plumbing issue. The urethra is much shorter on a lady than on a male, and the proximity of where the urethra is on a female is just more prone to have problems. And so you just have to work around that. Yes, ma'am. Let me think about that. Anything else? Yes.
I like to use nutritional yeast for popcorn or like a cheesy like soup or something, but I heard once that it's not good for unhealthy.
It's called a neurotoxin, I think is what they said. Yeah, I think that's what they said. Maybe in copious amounts, but I don't know in small amounts. I know that there's folks that says it's a neurotoxin and you shouldn't use it. Right. Or like Bragg's. They say Bragg's is a problem. But I haven't seen enough evidence of a problem. And it may be I just haven't seen the evidence. I've just heard people talk about it. What other questions?
Any issue, in your opinion, with the gums that are put in almond milk, like the John gum or the locust bean gum? Ingredient?
In almond milk? Yes. As you see them going more and more preservative, whatever, on the almond milk, it's best just to make your own. Mary Lou, you want to tell them real quick? She just takes a cup of she soaks a cup of almonds overnight, and then to 4 cups of water, 9 dates, 1/4 of a teaspoon of Celtic salt, a tablespoon of vanilla, okay? And she blends it up, and then she runs it through a milk bag. We make our own. It tastes a whole lot better, too. Best smoothies have that in it. Yeah. So, yes, I do have the carrageenan and the stuff that they're putting in it. It's just you're right, you want to be cautious. Rice milk, you can make your own. Just look at the ingredients. You can make your own rice milk also. You can get a rice milk maker. Oat milk. That's true. Elmhurst makes a milk that's very simple and doesn't have those ingredients in it. Yes, it's a little more expensive. Yes, one cup of, so she take a cup of almonds, and used to we'd blanch them and take the peeling off, but you don't have to. Just take a cup of almonds, soak it overnight, and then the next morning just put 4 cups of water, 9 dates, this is in the blender, 9 dates, a tablespoon of vanilla, and a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of sea salt. That's it, isn't it? Blend it up. Vitamix works best, but blend it up till it's, as smooth as possible, and then pour it into a milk bag and squeeze it. Milk it like milking a cow. You know what a milk bag is? It's a bag that you just pour your milk into it, and you squeeze it like you would a cow, and just keep squeezing down and squeeze it out, and then it just leaves the pulp inside. And then, what would you use the pulp for? Yeah, you can, if you want to add fiber into stuff.
Can you just drink it like that with your water?
You could.
We do.
Yeah. Pardon? That's just a strainer. Yes, and some people just like the actual milk kind of texture, but just as Marcia does, just blend it and use it. Yes, you can. There's machines that will do it also. Yes.
My husband told me that they don't like to do their jello, and he wanted to just use hot milk. And so I got on my knees and I prayed and I tried so many different things. And I finally came up with this and God blessed it and he loved it better than anything.
Yeah, our smoothies and our deli were much better tasting with this blend. Yes. Any other? Pray first. Yes, prayer is the big key. Any other questions? I'll come back to that. Lithium carbonate? Yes. I wouldn't recommend that neither. But this is lithium orotate that Neil Nedley talks about. It's just an element that's in the ground. And the pharmaceutical, stress, anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, dementia, Alzheimer's. It works for all those. When a patient's having what's called an Alzheimer's fit, they'll do 100 milligrams of lithium orotate to calm them down.
Is that different than the lithium that the psychologist might?
Totally different.
Okay.
That's a synthetic. That's a different type of lithium. Yes. Yes. It's actually good for preventing dementia. Yes. Yeah, I would look at some other things. Don't just plumb stop it. I would look at other things and incorporate other things and look at, weaning down on it. But I would add something else. Yes, ma'am. You had a question back here. Absolutely. Any other questions? Yes.
What's your opinion on all the Morningstar processed soy grillers and hot dogs?
I'll tell you what Dr. Agatha told me. She said it might even be better to eat the meat. Dr. Agatha said it. Now, this is what she told me. She said it's probably better just to go ahead and eat the meat. And she didn't believe in eating the meat. So just look at ingredients. So what I do for kids is I take kids and I'll get a bunch of kids and I'll line them up. I'll say I take 10 kids and I line them up. And I said, okay, now I want you to go from the tallest to the shortest in line. And then so Billy and Tommy are the same height, so you put an and in between. But Tommy and Jordan's shorter, so you put a comma. So if they're equal height, it's an and. If the first one is higher than the second one, it's a comma. So you got that. That is how it works on ingredients. So let's say Jif peanut butter. Look at the ingredients. First ingredient is what? Peanuts. What's the second ingredient? Sugar. What's in between? And. Legally, you could call Jif peanut butter sugar butter. Crazy, huh? And so as you look at the ingredients of items, go into a New Age health food store. They are not going to have analogs because they will tell you they are unhealthy. Now, does that mean that never, ever? Sometimes, your friends or whatever, and but it's once every blue moon. Or you may just say, no, I'm not going to do it.
That would be different than something like tofu, processed foods.
Yeah, tofu is a different situation. First, tofu, you want to make sure it's non-GMO because you don't want it to have the chromosome issues, the Roundup issues, and I used to buy 5-gallon bucket of tofu for $9.98. That was 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago in Washington, D.C. But then when we got concerned about too much tofu, we changed, and plus that wasn't organic. And I just didn't know back then what they were doing to it. Yes? Make your own, she's saying. Soy milk. I mean almond milk. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. That's right. Any other questions?
Any concern for brown rice and they say that it has arsenic?
That's a good question. Duke University started using brown rice, Dr. Walter Kempner, in 1933. In his practice in 1938, Duke University started using it, and they used it until 2002, and then they sold it to a group of physicians that used it in 2009. They did a lot of research on brown rice. And when the issue came out on the arsenic issue, I called Duke, and I said, I went there and I observed their program, and they do copious amounts of lab work in this program. I said, did you ever see an arsenic issue? And they said, no. Now, it is told that Lumberg brown rice has the least amount of arsenic, Lumberg. But that means that you would not drink apple juice because apple seeds have arsenic in it. So Duke never found any problems with the arsenic.
So, do you know where that came from? Because I always recommend brown rice, and then I
Yes. I don't know who started it. Yeah. The white rice. Yeah, the white rice people.
Do you know anything from migraines? That's my last question.
Dehydration can be an issue. It can be a skeletal issue where you might need an adjustment from a chiropractor. My son gets migraines, and it gets so bad he goes to a chiropractor, and by the time he gets home, it's gone. It's amazing how well it works. It can be glasses. It can be your glasses need adjusted, that your prescription is not right.
My cousin has some where she gets auras and she, like a stroke-like symptom, but it's not.
Yeah. Some people use something called, help me out, Mary Lou, Butterbur. Butterbur, and Butterbur can be beneficial. Some people find that Butterbur, 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 and that works. Caffeine's not good. It can cause headaches if you stop using caffeine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Other stuff? Okay. Migraine pills are vasoconstrictors. So, did y'all go to the program we did in McDonald at y'all's church there? When we did the program back in 04, 05? Yes. We did a class at McDonald Road Church, and y'all went to that church. No, y'all went to that church? Yeah. And there was a lady on Wednesday morning came, and she said, I need to tell you what happened to my daughter last night. I'm thinking, oh boy, she was a kindergartner. And we started the class either Sunday or Monday, and I think Sunday. And she says, last night I left here with a terrible migraine. And I told my daughter, it's just basically, leave me alone kind of thing. She said, when we got home, my daughter, 5 years old, or kindergartner, took her by the hand, said, Mama, sit down on the kitchen table. Chair, kitchen chair. She went and got a bucket of hot water for her feet. She went and got a bucket of ice water with 2 washcloths. She had prayer for her mama, picked her mama's feet up and set them into the water just as she had just learned that day in hydrotherapy. She took the 2 washcloths and put them in ice water, put one here, and she kept doing that every couple minutes. And she says, my migraine went away. And she says, I just want to let you know what happened. Well, see, the cold water is a vasoconstrictor, and it works like the migraine medicine does. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
When we were studying that 100 years ago, we said that there are no pain receptors in the brain except in the blood vessels. That's the only place that your brain has pain receptors. So that if you put your feet in hot water, it draws the blood away from you.
Yes.
And that's what the headache is, the congestion in your head, and then the cold wash it off.
That's a vasoconstrictor.
Yeah, and if you want to help that, put cayenne.
Oh, yeah. Put cayenne in there.
Because your feet will turn red and the brain will block.
Yes. The cayenne's a vasodilator.
And lack of sleep and too much screen time.
Absolutely. Screen time, lack of sleep. Sure. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
asked a neurosurgeon about that, if it would apply to a migraine.
Yes.
So I know, and then of course, Charlene was saying that she's found that heat helps the migraine, whereas you want the cold for the regular headaches, to draw the blood away from
Yes.
your blood vessels.
Mm-hmm.
Because the pain receptors in blood vessels, when they're congested, that's what causes
Mhm.
your headache.
That's true. Have you ever watched Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead? Watch Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Movie 1, not movie 2. It's a movie, documentary. Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And Nearly, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Movie 1, not movie 2. And it has a lady there who has migraines, and juicing significantly helped with her migraines. Yeah. Mary Lou? Yes, constipation. Of what's that? Oh, a food allergy. Yes, long-term food allergy can also. Food allergy? Cheddar cheese? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've run out of time, y'all. I think we're running people off. Marcia, come on up, or whoever, and maybe have prayer. And
Let's close with prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for your love. Thank you for Jesus. We thank you that you gave us natural remedies that we can use to be more healthy. And Lord, I just thank you for Walt and his wife being here today. Give them a safe trip home. Be with all of us as we travel home. Be with us this week, God, and may we share with people that we come in contact with, and share with them things that can help them be more healthy, but most of all, share Jesus with them. And so many people that we meet every day, Lord, they need the Lord. So be with us this week and help us to all have a good one. In Jesus' name, amen. You ought to see the people that I see at the VA all the time.
oh, I'm sure.
I had a guy yesterday for a colonoscopy, 370 pounds.